Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Devy to Dynasty Film Room podcast. Matt Brothers are back tonight, all back from sickness. I'm your host, Matt Jackson. With me, as always, I've got my co-hosts, Matt Cooper
What's up?
and Matt Rupert.
How's it going?
Viva Las Vegas, fellas. How are we doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. I don't have COVID this week, so that's a plus.
Yeah, I know. I feel
My
like
whole family
we were
went
all
down.
counted out for the count, man. It was horrible. Sickness was
Yeah,
going
my
on.
whole family was down for the count last week, so it's good to be back in the land of the healthy.
Yeah,
How'd you
me and
guys-
my wife are still getting there, but the kids are all back to 100%. So that's what really matters.
How'd you guys enjoy that Super Bowl? Did you do anything fun? Have any sort of Super Bowl parties?
Yeah, I do college ministry, so I had about 10 of my college guys over here at the house, which was fun. They about ate me out of house and home, but it was a good time.
Yeah, it's had plans, and we're still under the weather a little too much to go out, so we ended up just staying in and ordering some food and having some wings and jalapeno poppers, fried pickles, kind of the works.
All the good
So
food.
good. Yeah.
No, I texted you guys that night. That was the first time that I truly realized I was getting a little bit older, because we had, as I told you guys, two girls in our youth group, and one of these girls turns over to her friend and she's like, "Hey, Usher's playing the halftime show today." And the other friend was like, "Who's Usher?" And she was like, "I don't know, some rapper dude." I was like, "Oh, my heart."
No.
My heart. It's like that was like my time period. So for the first time, I felt like I was getting old during that Super Bowl. But nonetheless, we are back at it again with you guys tonight. We're back breaking down more rookie breakdowns. Tonight, we're going over the running back position. One guy that I will say that we're going to talk about tonight is somebody that I'm a little excited to talk about, but I feel like we're going to have some different views on it. And then one guy, of course, is coming off some injury concerns, but it's a guy that I feel like we're all going to like. And of course, that is Alabama's Jase McLellan and Texas's Jonathon Brooks. And of course, we get all this film. If you're curious, so we're going to be breaking down tonight from the Dynasty Nerds Film Room. That, of course, if you want a 15% off coupon for that, you can use our code CUBE. It'll be linked to the YouTube page and also to the Apple Podcast. You guys can get 15% off that awesome Film Room product. And other than that, we're excited to break down these guys tonight for you guys.
15%, not 50, just to be clear.
I said 15, didn't I? I'm sure I said
Promo
15.
code COOP. Check it out. It's where we do all of our study, and it definitely helps support us if you use that code.
So the first guy we're going to break down is, of course, Jase McLellan. He's a 5'11", 212-pound senior. He's a former four-star running back, the seventh running back in his class. And, of course, the first thing that we always break down when it comes to these running back positions is their patience and vision. And I'm going to start with you, Rupert. What did you see when it came to Jase McLellan's patience and his vision that maybe stuck out to you?
There's just a lot of meh watching him for me. I did have one note, like where he was just patient in the hole, let the blocks develop in front of him, and was able to just kind of follow, the guard and get a first down out of it. I didn't see a ton of good vision. It was basically, if it was in front of him, he got it. He, would just steamroll into the hole for the most part. So I didn't really see any kind of outstanding vision. He was a patient runner, I would say. And I feel like he did understand, like what the blocking assignments were trying to accomplish. So I can at least kind of give him a nod there, but really nothing special in the patience and vision department for me.
What about you, Cooper? Would you agree with that? Did you see kind of the same stuff, or did you see something different?
Good patience, like Rupert noted. I felt like he was calm when he would take the snap. He wasn't like in a hurry to just dart off somewhere and just make a guess. Like he was calm enough to sit back there. I felt like he was reading the leverage of the defense, reading where his blocking scheme was designed to go. He generally found the right crease and, wasn't getting his team behind the chains because of bad decisions. And overall, I think efficient footwork was something that I noticed a bunch of times. So I think that's related to vision in the sense that sometimes you see it, but you see it a second too late, and so your feet aren't in the right position to make the cut that you need to make. I felt like he didn't have a whole lot of wasted movement. He wasn't doing a bunch of like jittering in the backfield. His feet were just, he was in control of his feet. So as soon as he saw where he needed to go, he was able to get there. He just didn't have a whole lot of wasted movement in the backfield, which I liked. So I felt like he was really technically sound. I think to Rupert's point, I didn't see a whole lot of like spectacular creativity or manipulating the defense. Kind of, I didn't see a lot of shading one way to suck a defender into a wrong gap and then shooting the other way. He wasn't playing chess while they were playing checkers or anything like that. But I felt like he was technically sound and doing what he was supposed to do as a running back.
And that's kind of the way I felt too, right? He doesn't have a nasty dead leg. He doesn't really break people down in the hole. But what he does do, and I think Rupert, you kind of pointed this out, he looks a little bland, I would say, as a running back, but I don't necessarily think bland's a problem. He didn't do a lot of east to west dancing in the backfield. He saw the hole that was blocked for him, and I don't think I ever saw him take the wrong hole. I would slow the film down. I would watch like step by step of him running, and he chose the right hole more often than he didn't. And he would just get what was blocked for him. And I think, personally speaking, I think coaches are going to love that. More often than not, he wasn't breaking off. And we're going to talk about this when it comes to his speed a little later, because I don't think he's a dynamic speed guy. But what I did notice about him is he consistently gets, 4 or 5 yards. And while that might not get you huge 25, 30-point fantasy days, I mean, coaches are going to love that, right? They want a guy that can go out there on first down, make it a 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, and get your offense in good position. Now, how is that going to translate to the fantasy world? I don't know if that's going to be something that we're going to want on our fantasy roster. He might be a better real-life running back than he is a fantasy running back. I think that could potentially be a problem with him. But I do like how he went north and south, and he went what was blocked for him. And that's something that I wouldn't necessarily say vision was a negative for him, because I enjoyed the vision. One thing that I do want to kind of get you guys' take on, I noticed a lot of times he was facing, 7, 8-man stack boxes. When you got somebody like Jalen Milroe in the backfield, you're not really worried about him dicing you up as a passer. So does that play an impact where maybe he didn't break off some of these big runs? I think his longest run was like a 30-yard run this season. So he didn't break off a huge run, but did he have the opportunity to do that? Or was that something that maybe he was limited by his quarterback play a little bit?
Well, I saw at least one really big run on the game that I watched. So one of the games that I studied was the Michigan game in the college football semifinals. So a lot of people saw that game live. I saw that game live, and the play that I'm talking about was probably his best play all season. I mean, not that I watched every Alabama game or every snap, but man, there was not a lot of wow moments on Jase McLellan's tape, but this one moment in the Michigan game, it was like, okay, I didn't know he had that in the tank. I mean, there was a bad snap that Jalen Milroe bobbled, but he was calm, kept his eyes up, read the defense, and then the O-line kind of opened up a crease to the second level. He found it, hit it. He's one-on-one with a linebacker, and he gave this little shimmy shake and then was gone, exploded out of the cut, took it for a house call. I was like, Jase McLellan, where did that come from? Like, I didn't see it anywhere else on his tape, but he looked really, really good on that one play at least.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, maybe he does have in the tank, and I just didn't see it in the 2 games that I was watching. You kind of spoke on it a little bit. You saw a little bit of his elusiveness on that one play in the open field, but overall, when I was watching Jase McLellan's elusiveness, I didn't see a whole lot there. What he had in front of him is what he got. He wasn't really breaking people down all that much. Do you guys want to talk his elusiveness? Did you see the same thing? Did you see something different?
Yeah, I was overall pretty disappointed in his elusiveness. There's one play that's just going to stick in my mind. He sneaks out of the backfield to the left side. There's no defender on that side of the field. And he catches a little dump off pass. If it was someone like CMC, that's a house call for 60 yards. and he just runs. The safety runs from across the field, and they just meet each other, and he gets tackled for like a 15-yard gain instead of 60 yards. He didn't really make any move to really kind of set him up or try and get him to break down early. There's just nothing. I was just like, really? Like, man, as soon as I saw him sneak out and there's no one on that side of the field from the all 22 angle, I was like, oh man, this is a big play. And then
I think I had
it was first down, but
on my film too that I was watching where he got around the corner, and I wrote on my notes, I was like, if he was just a little bit faster, I felt like he could have house called this, but he didn't. We're going to talk about his speed here in a second, but yeah, that was something I noticed as well for McLellan.
Yeah, I feel like the only kind of elusiveness he did have, I don't think he's like a real good like accelerator, doesn't really have the dead leg, but he has like, I guess, kind of decent long speed to where he kind of like can surprise some defenders if he is like bouncing it to the outside. He can kind of accelerate that way, where he's not like having a hard cut. So I saw him beat safeties like trying to get him before he can cut it outside, and he took one for 30 yards or so for a house call in the Ole Miss game I watched. And then there's another time where he bounced it outside and for his second touchdown that game. So I think he does have some decent speed, but as far as like elusiveness with like dead legs, jukes, stutter steps, kind of like setting guys up, I just don't think that's in his arsenal.
What about you, Cooper? Did you see the same thing?
Yeah, I would say that this was definitely a net negative for him in terms of evaluating, does he have this trait that will translate to the NFL that leads directly into fantasy points? I would say that he doesn't. Like, he's just not. I saw maybe 2 plays where he made somebody miss, which that's a running back's job at the end of the day, is to make people miss. I mean, it's that his job is to follow his blocks and get what's blocked for him, but then his job is to create and get yards after contact and force missed tackles. And I just didn't really see that in Jase McLellan's game at all. Like you mentioned, Rupert, some build-up speed, but build-up speed's not really what you want from a running back. It's much more important to be quick and explosive in short areas than it is to have long speed at the running back position. And I felt pretty underwhelmed with his short area quickness, his acceleration through cuts, the power in his legs to be able to stick his foot in the ground and change directions and accelerate out of that. I just felt like it wasn't there for Jase McLellan.
It was one thing that I noticed that was really interesting. And every time, because I watched the LSU game, and Jalen Milroe ran a lot in that game. So you saw the tale of two tapes, right? You saw Jase McLellan when he was in the short area, his short area quickness, his elusiveness that wasn't necessarily there. And then you see Jalen Milroe carry a QB draw or a QB end around, and he's breaking people's ankles in the open field. Like, it was very like opposite of what you would imagine from the quarterback running back position.
I saw a lot of the same thing in my games.
One thing that I do feel like I really kind of liked about him, though, was, and this is a mixed bag when it comes to Jase McLellan's game, but his power and contact balance. I felt like he showed pretty good power, especially on blocks, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But he ran well for his size. I mean, he's not small by any stretch of the imagination. He's 212 pounds, so he's got pretty good size to him. I would argue that he probably plays a little bigger than that. I liked his power. One thing that I didn't necessarily like was his contact balance. There were 2 plays versus LSU where I saw him get the ball in the backfield and either trip in the backfield before he hits the hole, or one defender comes around the edge and just swipes at his legs and he goes down. So I feel like his contact balance was a little iffy, but I felt like he ran with good power. What did you guys see? I'll start with you, Cooper, when it came to his power and contact balance.
I made quite a few notes actually, that he finished with good pad level, tended to fall forward. I didn't see a lot of like straight up broken tackles, or like the guy we're going to talk about in a minute was like dragging people for 10 yards before going down. Like, I didn't feel like Jase McLellan was that hard to bring down. I didn't feel like he was super powerful. But I felt like he was tough, and he wasn't shying away from contact, and he wasn't looking for ways to get out of contact. He just, I mean, like we said with the vision, like, he takes what's there, he runs till he gets to a defender and then he falls forward for a yard or two more, and that's who he is. Like, he's going to get what's there for him. He's not going to get a whole lot more.
Agreed. You can just tell he's like really well coached. Just, he follows his blocks. He knows the assignments. He runs with good pad level. I also have the same note. Like, he does fall forward. He kind of invites contact. Instead of trying to juke a defender, he'll just, smash his shoulder into him. So overall, like, I think he has like a spot in the league. I just don't really see much, kind of fantasy upside, but you can tell he's well coached, and that can take him into the NFL. And who knows, maybe he can improve his athleticism a little bit. We've kind of seen that with other players in the league. So
we do know one thing that's going to keep him on the field is his third down skill set. I would say less his pass catching, how he showed that he was able to do this, but his run blocking. I mean, I made several notes all over my sheet that he was very good at his run blocking assignments. He hardly ever missed a run blocking assignment. He would hold guys and push them forward as Jalen Milroe's running around the corner on a QB run. That was something that I really liked about his film. Again, something that's going to keep McLellan on the football field, but does that necessarily translate to fantasy points? I'm not really sure yet. But I did at least like that, his McLellan's third down skill set. What about you guys? Did you notice anything about that?
Well, so run blocking and pass blocking are two different things. And, obviously he's with Jalen Milroe, so he had more run blocking. Typically, a running back doesn't have a lot of run blocking opportunities because they're the ones doing the running, right? A little bit of a unique offense there with Alabama, with a rushing quarterback, and a lot of design quarterback runs. I had a bunch of really negative notes in pass protection. I felt like he was getting demolished. His technique wasn't good. His effort wasn't good. His awareness wasn't good. I think out of all the running backs we've studied, I had the most negative notes on him in pass pro out of everybody that we've looked at.
Really? Because I saw a lot of run block reps. Maybe this is what you're talking about, and I had a lot of positive run blocking.
Right. But run blocking, you're moving forward into somebody. Pass blocking, they're coming at you. It's a totally different thing. And I felt like, I don't know. I made a bunch of negative notes on the film about it. That was probably his weakest area for me. And I felt like when he was asked to go out and pass catch, he looked really natural doing it. He had soft hands. I saw him reaching up and high pointing. He wasn't fighting it. And, that's always nice to see. He was, like we've noted in our previous breakdown of him, he didn't make a whole lot of guys miss after the catch. So he's not this guy that's like super dangerous in open space, but he was sure-handed and a good kind of check down target for his quarterback. So, pass catching was okay, but pass protection, I felt like, was pretty rough.
Interesting. I didn't have any bad pass blocking reps on the games I watched. Granted, there weren't a ton of passing in the games I watched, but I had multiple notes like where he stoned, a linebacker running up the middle. Another time they would blitz a DB off the end and he stonewalled him. I saw multiple like really good pass blocking reps and then other, just holding his own. So I didn't really see that as a weakness in my games. And
this is why we watch multiple games, right? This is why we don't just watch one or two games and come in here and do the podcast. So if you guys want to see multiple games, of course, we mentioned it earlier, 15% off a promo code COOP on the Dynasty Nerds website. You can watch all these films for yourself. So that's why we do that, right?
Exactly.
So moving on, I kind of alluded to this a little bit, but I don't necessarily know if he's a great fantasy running back. Just because he doesn't do a lot of things. He does a lot of things well. They're going to keep him on an NFL roster, and I think he's going to be an NFL asset. I don't necessarily see him as a fantasy football asset. I don't know if I would take him above the middle to late third. Maybe I'm a little low on him. I don't know. But where are you guys taking him in the rookie draft right now?
I don't know.
I kind of struggled. Go
ahead. I don't know if I am taking him. I think he's a day 3 pick. Even if you look at his production profile, he's one of those guys that had to wait his turn at Alabama, but then on top of it, Gibbs then transferred in, and he had a significant knee injury. I believe he tore his ACL. So this was his best season. He had 655 yards, which is not great. And so the production's not there. He's a little bit of an older prospect. He's got significant injury history that's getting factored in. He doesn't have a whole lot of special traits. And all that leads me to believe he's probably a day 3 pick. And if I'm going to gamble on a day 3 pick, I just don't think he's that guy that I'm going to gamble on. I mean, I think he's got a career as a backup in the NFL, and it's you can't say that a running back's never going to be fantasy relevant because they get hurt so much that, like, sure, could
did we see Zamir White being fantasy relevant ever in his
right?
career?
Anytime you see a guy that's number 2 on his depth chart, he has to be rostered in a fantasy league. Because he's one injury away from at least a couple games of decent startable productivity. And that's the thing is with a wide receiver 3, like, you don't know when he's going to pop off. You don't know when to start him. But with a backup running back, you know exactly when it's time to plug him into your lineup. So these are good guys to have on your dynasty bench. And I do think Jase McLellan probably has a career as a backup in the NFL, but I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that you're going to want to start in fantasy football unless a guy in front of him gets hurt first. So, yeah.
Agreed. I kind of see him, bouncing around in the league as a backup, and I don't really see myself drafting him. Maybe like if I have like a late 4th round pick, but like you said, I'm probably going to take shots on guys that I see like that have high upside or anything like that, where I can envision a little bit, better path to opportunities. But, maybe someone I pick up off the waiver wire, after draft if I got extra spot.
For sure. One guy that I can really see myself drafting in a lot of rookie drafts this year that I'm really excited for is Texas's Jonathon Brooks. I'm 6 foot, 207 pound. He was a redshirt sophomore this year, 4-star prospect, the former number 25 running back in his class. The only thing that you got to worry about with Jonathon Brooks is that ACL tear that he experienced this year. Had to sit a little bit behind Bijan Robinson. I mean, that's understandable. He's Bijan Robinson. But when Jonathon Brooks came in, he played really, really well. And I liked a lot of what I saw for Jonathon Brooks. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is his patience and vision. And I loved his patience and vision. I felt like while there were some times where I would feel him dancing behind the line a little too much, he wasn't as north and south a runner as maybe a Jase McLellan, where he would just see the hole and hit the hole. He did that a lot still. Like he got what was blocked for him, and he had the ability to create on his own, which Jase McLellan didn't. And I love that about Jonathon Brooks. I think his patience, his vision behind the line of scrimmage to find the right hole was really good. What did you guys notice about this for Jonathon Brooks?
I thought he was really special in this regard. He, like you said, like he dances around the line, but he kind of mimics the Le'Veon Bell type, where he's kind of like juking back and forth behind his guard to kind of get the defender going one way so he can exploit the hole on the backside. That's just all over his tape, and he has that vision to where he's actually playing chess back there. He's setting up defenders, making them go one way so his pulling guard can get to him, and then he cuts back to the backside hole. It was really fun to watch. There's like one time watching the tape where I'm like, oh man, I think he hit the wrong hole on that. And I watched it back again, slowed it down. And I was like, oh, I see what he did. Because the defender ended up getting outside leverage really quickly. And he recognized that and then cut it back inside. So I thought this is probably his best attribute, which is saying something.
Which is saying something because he's got one really good one that we're going to talk about next. But what about you, Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was controlled dancing. It wasn't the type of dancing that you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm making these unnecessary cuts that are getting me into trouble because I'm just guessing. Like, no, he was really intentional with his footwork. He was controlled. He had the juice in his legs to make multiple cuts in a row. So you can jump cut to the left to sidestep this guy and then cut back to the right. And it was really dynamic. It wasn't like, let me just run straight forward until I find contact and then go down. It was very much playing around with rushing lanes and playing around with defenders in their gap integrity. And,
There was
you know,
no
okay,
wasted. There wasn't wasted movement, right? There was like one play that, and sorry to cut you off there, but there's one play where I watched him jump cut 2 times behind the line of scrimmage. He jump cut into a lane, that lane filled with a linebacker. Then he jump cut out of that into an open lane and ran for like 10 yards. So like, there's no wasted movement when it comes to Brooks. He's a guy that can create on his own, right? He doesn't necessarily need the blocking there all the time.
yeah, there were a few plays I noticed in particular where it was like somebody was unblocked in his face in the backfield and he accelerated away from them just enough to make that guy miss, but still stayed in control enough to make a cut and get it. Was like the processing of, okay, I'm running away from this guy, but it's not a panic run because I'm still seeing the field in front of me and I'm still in control enough of my footwork to make the next guy miss. He's thinking 3 steps ahead. And yeah, it was fun to watch him process at the line of scrimmage on the second level. The game wasn't too fast for him, and his feet were fast, but they weren't getting ahead of where his mind was going either.
For sure. One trait that he had, Cooper, I'm surprised, or Rupert, I'm surprised to hear you say patience and vision was his best trait, because I think elusiveness was his best trait. Coop, you sent us a video in our group chat about him just absolutely destroying a guy on a dead leg in one of your games, and that wasn't the first time I saw that. Like I saw him do that several times in the game film that I watched, both against Houston and against Oklahoma, just dead legging people out of nowhere. Really breaking people down in the hole well. I mean, he was very elusive to jump cut, break tackles. I mean, this is what I felt like was his best trait. What did you guys think about it, Cooper?
Yeah, I definitely saw the same thing. Like you mentioned, that one clip I sent you, like the line opened him up to the second level. He gets to the second level one-on-one with a linebacker, and he gave him just this nasty little double dead leg. It's like he gave one dead leg, and then the defender reacted to that. He gave another one going the other direction, and the defender did not even get a finger on him. And he didn't just make the cuts, he exploded out of the cuts. So, that's, I think, a huge benefit is when a guy doesn't get slowed down trying to make those cuts, but he can actually accelerate through the cut and keep his momentum. That was something I thought Jonathon Brooks did really well, and he did it in very short areas. So Jonathon Brooks had incredible ability in a phone booth where, okay, I've only got a yard to try to make this guy miss because other guys are closing in, and all he needed was that yard. It didn't take him like 10 different stutter steps to try to make a guy miss. It was quick. It was like, boom, boom, I'm gone.
And that's what I really liked about it. You mentioned it. I mean, it felt like he didn't lose any speed when he was cutting. He stayed at top speed the entire time. And that's a rare trait because we watched a lot of guys not have the ability to do that. So, I mean, that's something that you love to see.
He's got so much juice in his legs, the power he has. And there's a lot of players can try that Le'Veon Bell, like wait behind the line, but you got to have the juice to put your foot in the ground and accelerate, 5 yards up the field in the blink of an eye. And he's got that kind of juice to be able to do that. And, that applies to his lateral ability. Looks like he has really fluid hips as well to be able to make those moves.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun to watch.
Speaking of, and he didn't just do it on that level too. He was also a very powerful runner. We alluded to this while talking about Jase McLellan, but how many times did you guys see Jonathon Brooks run? He gains about 7 or 8 yards. He gets gang tackled by like 3 or 4 people, and he's carrying him an additional 4 or 5 yards. I mean, I felt like I watched that happen over and over and over again. I mean, this guy runs with low pad level. He runs with great power. For his size. I mean, I love his power and contact balance. I mean, this was another, I know it feels like we're just giving him all the good stuff, but I loved this area when it came to his game too. What about you, Rupert?
He has the disgusting stiff arm. I think there was like 4 where he just like demolished a guy on a stiff arm. My favorite play from watching him, it wasn't a touchdown run, but it was pretty darn close. He ended up getting to the second level, and there's a safety there, and he just stiff arms him, throws him to the side, and then gets 30 yards after contact, like with a guy like hanging on him. It was very reminiscent. You'll notice play Coop when Cam Newton carried a Bucks defender on a quarterback run for like 49 yards. He ended up carrying him for like 15 yards into the end zone. It was pretty much like that. He's just like carrying a dude on his arm and, runs for 30 extra yards. And another play, like in the first game I was watching of him, I made a note that like he just seems like one of those guys that's just going to have a nose for the end zone. It was, play there at the 10 or 12 yard line, and he cuts the outside, and there ends up being like 3 defenders there pretty much ready to stonewall him into the end zone. He's like, I don't care. He goes right through them all. And I was just like, I like this guy. He's really plays with a lot of tenacity.
Yeah, I felt like his elusiveness actually led directly into his power, because when you're shifty and you're always left and right and a guy can't get you square, what you want to do as a running back when you're dipping your pads, you want to pop him right on the outside shoulder. You don't want to pop him in the middle of the chest because he's square up and you might drive him back a little bit, but if you pop him in the shoulder, that's going to kind of turn him, and now he's only got half of his power to tackle you. So you're kind of taking one side of him, and that was something that I saw Jonathon Brooks do a lot. Was he would get on one side, the left or the right, pop the guy right in the shoulder, turn him sideways, and then the only thing that guy could do is kind of hop on his back, and that's where you see Jonathon Brooks just start to drag guys. And so, yeah, pretty consistently, I made multiple notes in my 2 games where it wasn't like he would break the tackle outright and just leave the guy laying on the ground and run and run past him, but he would just get. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to fall forward for a yard or 2. It was like I'm dragging guys for 8 yards after the contact, and that was pretty fun to see. I thought he had consistently good pad level. He always he was a tall guy. He's listed at 6 foot, and it felt like he was really upright for a lot of his run. But as soon as he knew,
6 foot might be selling him short a little bit. I think he might be a little taller than that, but we'll see.
Yeah, he looks tall, but point is he looked like he was running a little bit upright until the moment that contact was about to come. And then consistently you saw the pad level go down, and he always finished his runs with a pop. So you love to see that.
For sure. And kind of just wrapping up here, I mean, his third down skill set, specifically, I want to talk about his pass catching, because one of the plays I think epitomizes his third down skill set, his pass catching. I was watching him come out of the backfield. He runs a little wheel route, and the ball's thrown to him, and he jumps up in in the air, catches it with one hand, kind of turns and like cuts up field for like a 10-yard gain. I mean, he just looks natural catching the ball. I mean, I watched him line up in the slot, in the outside. He can run decent routes. He's not just running those wheel routes, those straight up turnaround hook routes. I mean, he's running pretty defined routes. I mean, I loved him as a route runner. And then when it comes to his pass blocking, I thought he did well in his pass blocking reps that I saw. I didn't see him really whiff on any pass blocking reps in the film that I watched. So I think he's got the third down skill set that's going to make him a really good PPR back in your fantasy leagues this year.
Yeah, so this was his best year catching the pass, and he had 25 catches, which is not a ton. I mean, he played 10 games because he did have the injury. So 25 catches. It wasn't something he was asked to do a ton. I did not really see him out there running routes like what you just said. I saw a few wheel routes, and then otherwise it was mostly just dump offs, screens, check downs. That was pretty much. I didn't see any angle routes. I didn't see really anything other than.
I saw an out route. I saw some in routes. I saw a Texas route.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see any of that in the games that I watched. But what I did see was that when he was targeted, it looked really natural, really smooth. Definitely a hands catcher. He looked like he had it in the tank. Definitely like pass fail. He's passing the test, and he was dangerous after the catch. So all that elusiveness that we already talked about definitely came into play after receiving the catch. And I had a number of positive pass pro notes on him too. I thought he did a really good job kind of standing his ground, picking up the blitz when he needed to pick up the blitz, give viewers enough time to get a pass off or scramble away. So yeah, I thought overall third down skill set, while it wasn't like, oh man, this guy's a weapon. This is like a Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey. Like I didn't come away feeling like that at all. But I felt like, yeah, this guy's very capable. He's not going to have to come off the field in these situations. So overall, I think between his size, his ability to run between the tackles, and what I saw in the third down skill set, I think he's got probably the best chance out of anybody we've studied so far to be a 3-down back at the NFL level.
Do you agree? Do you think the same thing, Rupert?
100%. He's. I saw the same thing that Coop saw. Like I didn't see a ton of different routes, but I made the exact same note. Like he looked natural, like hands catching it. There's like one wheel route where it was kind of thrown away from him a little more difficult catch, and he kind of made it look easy, which I really like to see. And like once he gets the ball in his hands, like on a little wheel route against a cornerback, like good night. He buried a guy with a stiff arm on one of the reps I saw. So he has the skill set to do it exactly like Cooper. Like I don't see him being like a 60, 70, 80 yard or 80 like catch guy a year, but I think he can do 3-down skill set, could be a workhorse back. So he's the guy I'm going to be targeting pretty heavily in drafts this year.
So let's address the elephant in the room. I think the only weakness that we really see that could be a potential problem is that ACL tear this year. Now he's had some time to recover from that, and ACLs aren't nearly as serious as they were years ago. But are we worried about that ACL tear? I mean, when do you see his projection? Because I could see him being a day 2 guy. I could see him being a guy that I get in the top of my second round rookie Brooks, but there's that ACL tear that lingers over him. Where are you guys taking him right now?
Well, he tore his ACL in November. So this isn't like, we had concerns about Tajay Spears last year because he had extensive injury history with his knees, but they were past injuries. This is more like Jameson Williams when he was drafted and he had to miss almost his entire rookie year. So that's a big deal to me. I mean, you've seen, not that, I mean, there might be multiple reasons. There are multiple reasons why Jameson Williams has not panned out so far. I mean, you got the injury, you got the suspension, the emergence of Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's a ton of factors, but like they traded up to get him in the first round, but he missed all of training camp. It just led to a really slow start to his career. I'm just really curious. He's not going to be able to do any of the pre-draft. He's not going to be able to participate in the combine, wasn't able to participate at the Senior Bowl. So there's some concern, I guess, in my mind about how will this affect the draft capital? Because if he falls to day 3 and then the team's not super invested in him and then he misses all of training camp, like there's just risk that it presents that I really wish wasn't there, because if I knew like, okay, he's fully healthy, I'm looking at this tape, he's clearly in the conversation for RB1 of the class if he's healthy and he doesn't have that concern hanging over his head. And so we know that running backs typically come back from ACL and they're fine. Maybe a little dip in production the first year after they come back, but then year 2 after the ACL tear, they usually are back to their normal selves. So yeah, I think he'll make a recovery. I hope a team is invested enough to be patient and that he eventually gets that opportunity, because I think he's a really, really good running back. And really the only conversation for me is he my RB1 or is he my RB2? Because we all love Bucky Irving.
I was about to do an experiment with you guys, and I think I'm going to do it right now. I want y'all to rank these running backs blindly right now, out of guys we've studied so far, right? Bucky Irving, of course, I'm blanking right now.
We talked about Trey Benson.
Yeah, Bucky Irving, Blake Corum, and Jonathon Brooks. How are you guys ranking those 3 guys right now? Because I would assume they're all kind of in the same tier right now, or close enough to each other. Where do you guys rank those 3 right now?
I think I'd
I don't
still
have
go
Blake
Bucky
one.
Irving as 1, Brooks 2, and Quorum 3.
I'm really torn right now, honestly, on the Irving Brooks thing. I think Brooks would be my RB1 if he didn't have the ACL hanging over his head, just because he does have. I mean, look, we've seen over the last few years there have been more and more small guys succeeding, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Bucky's listed 195, but if he came in and weighed at 185, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, he looks small on film. And so that's a concern. I'm hearing round 3 at best on Bucky Irving. Now, who knows if that's true? So really, like these two guys, draft capital and landing spot is probably going to break a tie for me because I love both of the running backs, and I know that's a cop out, but I really do love both Brooks and Irving. And to me, Corum, I believe he's my RB3 right now, but he's not in the same tier as those other two guys. He's a tier below them for sure.
All right. Well, that about does us for tonight. Appreciate you guys joining us as we broke down these two guys. We had a good time with you guys. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad we're all back from sickness finally. Why don't you guys tell everyone where they can find you? I'll start with you, Cooper, where they can find you on Twitter. And if they are happen to be listening, as we have a pretty good crowd listening on Apple Podcasts now, or if they're listening there, where can they find the YouTube page and that awesome new YouTube video that you uploaded?
Yeah, so we've been saying every week as we close out the show, we're like, yeah, at some point we're going to get some film breakdowns up for you so we can show you what we're seeing instead of just telling you. Well, we finally got one. It can be a little difficult sometimes with a full-time job and 2 kids and all that, but we did a Marshawn Lloyd film breakdown on the channel, so it's 10 minutes. I get into the all-22. I show you what I'm seeing. I show you the strengths, show you the weaknesses, talk about where I'd draft him. So you can find that youtube.com/@Devy2DynastyFR. That's the number 2, not TO, which also is my Twitter handle. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Devy2DynastyFR. And so, yeah, if you're on Apple, check out the YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to listen in your car sometime, know that Apple's an option. We'd love a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, we'd love a sub, a like, comment, all that kind of stuff. Just really helps people find our videos. So if you enjoy the content, definitely give us some engagement on that. We appreciate it.
Ruber, if anybody has questions for you on Dynasty related, where can they find you on Twitter?
Find me at Matthew Rupert FF. Feel free to tweet me or shoot me a DM.
Awesome. And you guys can find me on Twitter at DevyMatt. Once again, it was good to be back with you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube page. Leave a rating on the Apple Podcast if you're listening there. Would love to interact with you guys, answer any questions that you may have. But until then, we will see you guys next time.